Jaxson, what's it like to win in a place like this, especially given what happened last week and the fact you guys are heading into a bye? What was that locker room like after this game?
Yeah, it's definitely huge. Just for our team to rebound from last week. We felt like it got out of hand because of just the mistakes that we made, not anything because of what they did. So it was huge coming into this week that we, prepared the best that we could and, get a big win going into the bye week because, about the atmosphere, this is, for me, a place I've wanted to play my whole life. So, and I'm sure it's the same for many others on our team. So we were all excited and we just wanted to come out with a win.
How big was it getting Zach, what he could give y'all, just having both guys back there behind you?
Yeah, it's huge. We have the best running back room in the country. So, each guy can do different things, and they're so versatile. Just their abilities, what they can do on the field. So, when you're able to take Q out for a little bit to get him a breather, and have a guy like Zach in, or take Zach out for a breather and put a guy like Q in, it makes it really easy for our offense to move the ball. And they're just such electric players. So it's really fun to be out there.
Q on his birthday had a big game, surpassed 1,000 yards for a season. Just y'all running out of things to say about him each week? What he continues to do?
Yeah, I feel like he does something new every week. I was so hyped when he hurdled, in the first half. So, he's just a kid who's just going to continue to get better, and he's one of the best guys in the country already, and he just turned 18 years old. So, this guy's the limit for him for sure.
Jaxson, you had a number of really good plays with your legs, but the 56-yard throw to Mingo, wouldn't talk us through that particular play. That was kind of a big one that really got you in scoring position and made a big difference in the game. Yeah,
we ran it a little earlier in the game, I think like on our second drive, and we just weren't able to connect on it. So, we knew that that was a matchup weakness for him going into the game, and when we got him the first time, we just weren't able to connect on it. We knew that we had to come back to it again, and Mingo's just a really good player, and all I had to do was just put it out for him, and he made the play.
What does it mean for you guys as players when Kiffin's willing to run out all the way onto the field to jaw with the refs a little bit to make sure they pick up the flags? How do you guys respond to something like that?
It really just it just makes it really known that he's with us, and he's a part of us, and he's one of the most passionate guys in the country. So he's always going to fight for us, and we want to fight for him.
Mingo said he had his back turned for the fake punt with JJ. Were you watching it all, or did you not know what was happening?
Well, I was a little frustrated that we had that 3-and-out on that drive. So I came running off, and I was a little pissed off and stuff. And then Coach Dagey came up to me and he's like, "Hey, we're about to fake this punt, so be ready to go back out there again." So I turned right around and was just hoping that we were able to execute it.
How big was it for y'all to watch that defense mid to second quarter and most of the third finally kind of click something and shut down that offense?
It was huge. It was huge. Just how they were able to respond after the first two drives, and I thought they played excellent. Really, the rest of the game, they had a few big plays, but other than that, they really stepped up big for us. And for an offense, when it takes you a little bit to get going, your defense is able to have your back and get you a few stops to just help the offense get in rhythm. It's really huge.
You had those two drives in the third quarter where you guys were pinned really deep and turned them into touchdowns. What do you say before drives like that to get guys going?
I think our guys view it as just an opportunity to get more yards on the stat sheet. So, we don't really care where we get the ball. We feel like we can score in any part of the field. So, we're always just excited to go out there.
Talked about the environment last week at LSU, and then obviously this one as well, back to back. For you, in first time in these places, what do you kind of do to kind of settle yourself, calm yourself before you go out for that first time?
Yeah, I think LSU last week was probably the biggest game that I've ever played in. There was a lot of learning experience for that. So, I thought it was a huge opportunity for me to rebound and make some corrections in my game going into this week. And, I felt way more comfortable, and, just because of my experience. So, I felt really good out there today.
What have you learned about this team in the last week or so after that loss to now?
I just don't think that, we never give up hope. Those times that we're down or, one side of the ball is not really clicking as well. We'll stay together, and we always have hope that, we're going to somehow, some way, find a way to win the game.
When do you let yourself start thinking about Bama?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Anything else for Jaxson?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. That'll be it. Appreciate it.